The views and content expressed on the following program are provided solely for informational and entertainment purposes. They do not constitute legal advice. A podcast is not a substitute for retaining a competent, licensed attorney to advise you on your specific legal situation.
Break the business, play is work and work is play. Power into creators, have fun along the way. Break the business, doing what it takes. Celebrate success and learn from the mistakes.
Happy holidays, everybody. Welcome to the show. It is time for Break the Business, where we empower indie creators and have some fun along the way. I'm Ryan Kairalla, and it is a pleasure to have you here this week. Ooh, it's the holiday season. Even here in sweltering hellscape Miami, Florida, we're getting a little bit of that holiday air coming our way. I think I actually heard the weather report was saying, the forecast was saying, I kid you not, on Christmas Eve, it's going to get into the 50s, y'all. Like, this is like get into the attic and get your winter coats out of the cardboard box that's degrading in the overly humid attic weather. This is exciting, exciting times. And the holidays are just generally great because you get to spend time with family. And let's live that right now. Let's bring in some family. Producer Lauren, are you excited for the nippy weather coming our way in sunny Miami?
It's going to get into the 40s, Ryan.
What?
Not the 50s.
40s?
On Christmas morning, hold on, I'm going to look it up for you right now. On Christmas morning, we will be waking up to 46 degrees.
Oh, no. No, I'm not doing that. I'm
You're staying bundled up with some hot cocoa and a big heated blanket, huh?
Look, weather in the 50s sounds neat. It's like, ooh, this never happens in Miami. 40s, I'm not getting out of bed. All right?
Spoiled Miamians.
I don't like live in constant fear of hurricanes 6 months out of the year to deal with 40-degree weather. What is that?
Oh my gosh. Well, if it makes you feel any more Miami, I was going to tell you it gets warmer, but I would lie. Tomorrow the high is 80, but on Christmas Day the high is 55 degrees. So you actually don't leave the 50s on Christmas.
Well, looking forward to it either way because the holidays are going to be great. This is actually our last Break the Business of the year. We're closing up shop for 2022, but excited to have you joining us again in the new year. That being said, we got ourselves quite a little program to close ourselves out with for 2022. We are bringing it for this year, and I'm excited for that. Our guest coming up in the next segment, Jordy Freed's going to be joining us. Really excited to talk to this gentleman. He's the head of partner marketing and strategy, brand and business development, and video and sound products for Sony Corporation of America. What does that mean? That means he does brand partnerships. He works with some of the biggest names in music and creates brand partnerships with some of the coolest technology around. Spatial audio, VR, a lot of the cutting edge stuff in music this guy works with. And that means we got a lot of stuff to talk to him about because I'm really interested in how indie creators can get more of these brand partnerships. That's a huge thing for me. I'm interested in the rise of VR in music. I'm a huge VR nerd. I got my, what do they call it now? It's not called Oculus anymore. My Meta Quest sitting right over there. And I've always been intrigued by VR concerts and what VR can mean for musicians. So I'm going to really pick his brain about that. We got a lot of great stuff to chat with Jordy Freed about in the next segment. That's going to be a blast. Now, Lauren, I want to do a little bit of a callback from something we talked about on the show last week because the listeners got a kick out of it. Now, if you remember, Lauren, we talked a great deal last week about the rise of AI platforms and what it could mean for the music industry. Everybody's talking about ChatGPT right now, this AI platform that can basically answer any question, that can handle a lot of tasks. And people are wondering, does platforms like ChatGPT and other AI platforms, what does that mean for creators? Is it a tool that's going to make creators better, or is it potentially the replacement for creators? It's an exciting time for creators. It's a scary time for creators. And one of the things I did, Lauren, if you recall, to sort of demonstrate where we are, is I wanted to kind of scare the listeners a little bit by doing a tip of the week where I asked the ChatGPT AI platform, give me a tip of the week for my indie music podcast. And then I read it on the air without telling the listeners that it was generated by ChatGPT. And then I revealed it at the end, and I expected all of the listeners to be scared, like, oh my God, the machines are taking over, the robots can do everything. But instead, I got the opposite reaction. People loved the ChatGPT tip of the week. I got an email where somebody just wrote in, I want more ChatGPT tips. Another email from a listener. Can you ask the evil robot for more career advice, please?
I guess they don't want our advice anymore.
They just want to hear from the robots. And who am I to deny the listeners? So until further notice, we're going to have a recurring segment on Break the Business called our AI Overlords Tip of the Week, where I'm going to ask ChatGPT to give us a tip of the week. And ChatGPT gave us a great one here. Here we go.
Okay.
Our AI Overlords Tip of the Week. I don't know if we have like a banner for that we can scroll across the bottom of the screen. Let's see. Any kind of fanfare that we got.
Here we go.
Oh, there we go. Wait. I saw it. There it is. Okay. So here we go. Our AI Overlords Tip of the Week, because that's what the listeners want. They don't want to hear from you or me. They want to hear from the robots. Well, here's what the robots have to say.
Okay.
One important thing for independent creators to remember is the value of networking and building relationships with other creators and industry professionals. In the fast-paced world of online content creation, it can be easy to get caught up in the hustle and focus solely on creating and promoting your own work. However, building connections and relationships with others in your field can not only be helpful in terms of learning from and collaborating with others, but it can also open up new opportunities and provide valuable support and encouragement as you navigate the often challenging world of independent creation. To start building relationships, consider attending events and conferences, joining online communities and forums, and reaching out to other creators or industry professionals whose work you admire. It's also important to be authentic and genuine in your interactions, as building genuine connections is more valuable in the long run than simply trying to network for the sake of networking. A freaking AI platform wrote that. That was incredible.
That's so detailed.
Right?
It's like, what's your advice? Networking is great. I'd be like, oh, thanks. No, it's like, here's a full paragraph and a half on not only that you should network, but how you can and how it benefits you.
And
That's in depth.
I can't emphasize this enough. I did not ask ChatGPT to give me advice about networking. I told ChatGPT, I host a podcast for independent creators. Give me a tip of the week. It picked the tip, and it's a really good one, because this absolutely is my view on networking. Like, people talk about networking as if it's like networking period. And as long as you're just talking to people, as long as you're just messaging people, that's valuable. But the quality of your networking matters more than the quantity. If you're just sort of trying to spam people and create a bunch of messages, and what I think is the most annoying thing was just sort of like asking people if they can talk for a bit without any sort of like point or any sort of goal, I think that is a waste of your time, and it's the waste of the time of the person you want to network with. When I network, something that's worked for me in my 10 years of really trying to work in this industry is I engage in what I call purposeful networking. I network with a goal in mind, and not just my own selfish goal in mind, but a goal that me and the networking person can do together. You guys remember a couple years back, we had that really successful telethon where we raised a lot of money for musicians affected by COVID by supporting the Sweet Relief Foundation. And I certainly did that for the reason that we all got involved. We wanted to help people, but it was a networking tool for me too. I was able to reach out to a bunch of folks in the industry who helped with that telethon, and I got a lot more networking out of it because I invited these people to participate in something that mattered to all of us, as opposed to just, hey, let's just talk so I can add you to my Rolodex. Same thing with this podcast. I bring people on this show and we get to do a show together as opposed to just talking for the sake of talking. So think about how you can have purposeful networking to make your networking better. I know you're a big fan of networking, Laura.
Oh, man. Networking is my best friend. And a good friend of mine who also has tons of great advice, Ken Davenport, always talks about when you network, it's better to network when you don't need to or need something. And nothing do people want to hear more than, how can I help? And offering people that you like and admire, as opposed to, come see my show, come see my band, I'm doing this thing. Hey, I'm about to do a live stream. But rather, I appreciate something I saw you did. I love your work. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help you with something. Offers like that tend to get reactions and genuine compliments on things. A lot of the time I hear people afraid to contact artists that they respect or people that they consider more successful than them because they feel needy or imposter syndrome or anything else. But I don't know any performer that doesn't like a compliment when it's genuine. They're working for applause. And so, especially in the digital world, they're not hearing enough of it. So if you like something, reach out to somebody, not because they're good to have in your network for your career, but because you like them and want them to know that you appreciate the work they've done, because that's valuable networking.
And a similar thought with that in terms of, and this is just great advice if you actually want that initial networking contact to lead to a conversation, is get to know the person you're talking to, right? Learn a few things about them that you can then put in that initial message, because that sends a signal to the person that you're messaging, oh, I'm not getting spammed here. This person did their homework. And I'm telling you, even for somebody like me, especially now with a kid has very little time on his hands, if I saw that you actually did a little bit of homework, that you actually listened to a couple episodes of Break the Business, that you read my book, you're going to get like a 100% chance that I'm going to want to like chat with you for 30 minutes if that's what you're asking for. Whereas if it's a spam email, if I can tell that you just cut and paste the same text that you sent to 10 other entertainment lawyers, not interested. So, Lauren, this has just been, I have to talk to you about this. This has been, this has been on my mind all day. I want to like dedicate the next like few minutes of this show to this before we bring in Jordy Freed. I didn't even think we were going to talk about this week, but this came on my Twitter feed this morning and it's all I want to talk about. Okay. I've on Twitter, I was following this terrific First Amendment attorney, civil rights attorney named Anastasia Bowden. She is a senior fellow at the, what do I have it here? The Pacific Legal Foundation. She's also the co-host of the podcast Dist, which is about the Supreme Court. And she tweeted out that she won a federal court case on summary judgment, I believe yesterday or earlier this week, in which the court held that the First Amendment protects the rights of musicians in Houston to busk, to play out in busking. And she was the attorney that represented that case. She got the win, a huge win for the First Amendment. And, you know, this is so exciting to me. Like, just the idea of, like, because, I mean, so much of the law in this world just protects the big people, right? We're always hearing about laws and courts and everything, like, going against the big people. But the idea of just, like, a busking musician, somebody just trying to play their music out in the world, gets a win, gets protected by the Constitution, and that there's a lawyer out there who was helping out that musician. I believe the musician's like an accordion player. Imagine just like being a musician, just seeing this accordion player and being like, I'm going to use the full weight of my legal knowledge to make sure that that accordion can play out in public. Gotta love this. So,
yes, I'm impressed. That's, yeah, I have questions.
Yes, I do too. And who better to answer those questions than Anastasia Bowden herself? We actually have her on the line. Let's go ahead and bring her in. As I said before, she is a senior attorney at the Pacific Legal Foundation, the host of the Dist podcast, and dare I say, First Amendment hero. Anastasia Bowden joining us on Break the Business. Anastasia, this is so wild to me. Like, what a cool case. And, you know, so often on this show, which is this program is all about helping independent creators, we so often have to talk about how hard it is for independent creators and how we just don't get a lot of wins, as many wins for independent creators as we should. But this is a solid win for independent creators, many of whom rely on busking to make their livelihood. Can you tell us a little bit about the case that you got this favorable ruling on this week?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're so right that it's not only hard for independent creators, it's hard for their attorneys when they walk into court trying to get a win, because unfortunately, courts don't give a lot of respect to the right to earn a living. If you go into court and you say, hey, I'm being deprived of my livelihood here, courts just don't care. But if you go in and you say, you know, there's a speech aspect here, courts light up. They're like, ooh, First Amendment, we like that, right? And so We were lucky enough to have that crossover here to really get the court's attention. And I think it's nice because it does grab the attention of, I think most people like busking. Busking is beautiful. There's something really deep, even though it's, people, it's a light topic, but in a way it's something fundamental to our well-being, music and providing a service that other people enjoy and want to give you money for. And you're practicing your skill and you're getting a little bit of money for it. It combines all of these rights. And so it's a way to introduce courts to the tie-in between creation and earning a living, and hopefully, subtly teaching them that the right to earn a living is important too.
Can you tell us a little bit about the law in Houston that the court held violated the First Amendment?
Yeah, well, Houston had actually banned busking in most of the city. It banned it in all of the city except for a small portion called the theater district. And in the theater district, you could busk, but you had to get a permit first. And it was a very onerous process. I mean, it was expensive. You had to busk in the same spot every time. And you actually had to get permission from the adjacent property owners to busk there, which in First Amendment law is considered a heckler's veto. If people don't like your busking, they'll just say no. Adjacent property owners should not have control over your free speech rights. And so it was extremely onerous. And our client, Tony Brilla, who's a professional musician, professional writer as well, accordionist, he had gotten that permit for a year, but he just decided it wasn't paying for itself because there wasn't enough foot traffic in the theater district to justify it. And so instead of renewing it, he chose to join us in suing the government, which is my job, and it was my pleasure to represent him. How
did you come across this client? Like, how did they find you, or you found them?
Yeah, well, I'm a big fan of busking.
Yeah, all right.
And my family knows, like, if we're approaching a busker, they need to whip out their wallets because we're going to give that busker $1. I just think it's a beautiful thing, and I love
our kind of
person. I love the gutsiness behind it, And
So I have been looking into these regulations, and I was just kind of poking around and Googling, and I saw that somebody had written an op-ed about it, and it was Tony Brilla. He had written about his experience navigating these crazy regulations. There was like no one in the Houston department to answer his questions. Half of them didn't even know this whole permit scheme existed. It was this Kafka-esque nightmare to busk. And I felt compelled. I felt that we had to represent this man. And so we called him up and said, would you want to be a civil rights plaintiff? And he said, absolutely.
Ah.
That's a great pitch. I mean,
what busker's like, nah.
I mean, would you like to be a civil rights plaintiff like that? I mean, that's the kind of people we make movies about. Like, who would not want to be a civil rights plaintiff? That sounds so exciting. Well, let me ask you this now, because your case was about a Houston law, but certainly there are plenty of cities all over the U.S. that may either currently have or may have in the future some limitations on busking. And so there are musicians out there right now who might be adversely affected by these overly restrictive busking laws. What sort of things might a musician look for in a law that could make them go, you know what, that's over the line as a restriction. That's probably going to violate the First Amendment, and I should talk to a lawyer about that?
Yeah, I think no one disputes that there might be good reasons for restrictions. For example, when there's a lot of foot traffic and they just have to allocate it somehow, right? We can't let there be potential safety issues with cars passing by. You could think of, like, let's say no busking on the middle of like an embankment between lanes or something. It's kind of commonsensical. If there's a real palpable health or safety interest, then that's not going to be challengeable in court. But if it's something where particularly they are distinguishing between different types of speech. So here in Houston, they were like, panhandling, fine. Busking, no way. If they're doing things like that, that's that your spidey senses, your spidey First Amendment senses should go up.
Yeah. You can ask for it for free, but you can't work for it. Thanks.
Oh, right. We see that a lot.
Okay. Yeah, and you took on one client, is that correct? Like, you weren't taking on, in theory, busking in general to Houston. You had a client that you were fighting for in this?
Yeah, that's right. Our clients, they are vehicles for moving the law. They act as a stand-in for everyone else. Although we met really great people along the way. One of my favorites was a man who wanted to start a group to keep children off the street in Houston, particularly for at-risk youth, at-risk boys. I believe they were going to call it. There was some pun. Buskers and singers love puns. It was like a boys to men pun. Boys into Men, I think was the name. But he was prohibited because of this law. And so we met people like that. People don't realize how burdensome and how far reaching these regulations can be. They think it's just kind of simple, but actually you're really here potentially endangering children who needed a place to go after school and needed a hobby to keep them safe. And so we met a lot of great people, even though it was just Tony who was our client. And it's funny you say, who doesn't want to be a civil rights client? A lot of people, they hang up on me. They can't believe that I would represent them for free, right? They think it's a scam,
Right.
but it's not. It's just constitutional law.
Well, and I think what I saw a lot with the buskers when I was over at the Fringe Festival, which is a huge busking thing, was that it's really hard to get them organized because by nature, that's not who they are. They're very nomadic. They don't want to work within the system, and they don't work together as much as, side by side, but nobody really forms organizations on their behalf. And that seems to be a big struggle. So I applaud you, number one, for doing something, because it's not easy. Yay! And I applaud your client for being willing to step up and represent a huge group that isn't asking for representation because they don't really know how. And you had to fight for that. And you had to hunt. And so I appreciate that you believe what you did, but don't stop.
That's true. And, your client does have a lot of courage. When I do say, who doesn't want to be a civil rights plaintiff, because that sounds exciting, this does take courage, right? It takes courage to literally make a federal case out of this, which is
And
what your client was
time.
willing to do. Yeah, time to be the face of this kind of
And
thing.
time is value.
3
you know?
years. 3 years to
Wow.
get this decision, right?
3 years. This is why I don't do litigation. I don't have the patience for it. So is this a done deal in Houston? Do you anticipate that the city's going to appeal this?
I think it would be a very bold call to appeal this. I think it's pretty straightforward First Amendment law. It's amazing to me that it took 3 years. This is one of the broadest bans and most onerous permitting schemes in the entire country. And for them to test that, I think would not be wise. But you never know. The time is not run, so we'll see.
Well, either way, this is a week for celebration. What a great thing to nice feather in your cap as you're going into the holidays. That's got to get you into the holiday spirit, knowing that you helped a lot of fantastic indie creators in Houston. Anastasia, congratulations and thank you for the great work that you do.
Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Anastasia Bowden, everybody. First Amendment hero. I don't know if she'll say it because, lawyers have to be more humble about these things. But, that is a very cool story that helps indie creators. And it definitely puts me in the holiday spirit. Lauren, before the show started, you actually threw a bunch of holiday topics at me that you thought we should cover. You tell me which one you want to hit me with first, because you had a lot of good ones there, and we haven't talked enough about the holidays right now.
Happy Hanukkah, everyone. While we're recording, we're in the middle of Hanukkah, so yay. But I was saying holiday gigs. I don't know, I assume everybody knows, but I don't know how many people actually know how valuable and profitable the holiday season is. And finding ways to maximize that is of incredible value, even in the fact that it can roll over to your lulls in the rest of the year. You can book multiple gigs a day. This is the time to go out to corporations, businesses in your local neighborhood and say, do you guys do a holiday party? If you don't, you know that it increases productivity and it makes your employees feel grateful and welcome. And if you want to throw something together, we'd be happy to help out. Go to local bars and restaurants, see the kinds of things that they're doing for the holiday season. Most places do pay better at the holidays. You can get higher rates for things. Holiday content. Everybody who's looking for gigs right now is looking for holiday gigs. So if you can market yourself that way, that is going to lead to more opportunities coming your way, if all that makes sense.
It does.
The other thing I was looking up is public domain holiday songs. So if you're a cover band, if you're a band that creates original music, try to add in some of the songs that everybody knows and wants to hear into your rep that don't cost you anything to add in.
Oh, there you
Does
go.
that make sense?
Yeah.
There's a bunch of them. What was I trying?
And it's good for like, if you're going to make covers or you're going to put it in a music video or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Good to know the public domain hits.
Deck the Halls, Jingle Bells, Joy to the World, Oh Holy Night, 12 Days of Christmas, We Wish You a Merry Christmas. I mean, the list goes on, but there's a huge number of songs that you can make your own royalty free. And they are in the public domain. That being said, don't take, this is the lawyer advice that I'm not giving because I'm not a lawyer. Just because the song is in the public domain doesn't mean a recording is. So if you're making a video of something, don't take somebody else's Oh Holy Night and play it and go, but it's in the public domain.
That is sage advice and something that it's very much worth imparting to artists because I see that one all too often. I mean, I've been thinking a lot about the public domain actually because January 1st is fast approaching, which means we have a new crop of stuff that's entering the public domain. And on the music side, pretty excited for the jazz standard Blue Skies to be making its way to the public domain. Yeah, Blue Skies smiling at me. Nothing but blue skies do I see. I'm not going to sing another line of that.
I know. I was like,
until January 1st.
Next year.
But it's a cool time of year for that stuff. And yes, the great advice about Christmas covers and avoiding the use of the sound recording because the sound recording might not be in the public domain, but the original song very well could be. So record your own version of it. And great way to make use of the vast array of public domain songs that are available to you. Cyber PR Music, in this same vein, had a lot of great pieces of advice on how to use social media over the holidays to kind of get some interest in your music. And I encourage folks to check that out. We can put the link in the show description. But our friends at Cyber PR talked about creating holiday-themed content for your socials. Maybe you take some of those Christmas songs, you make Facebook videos out of them, Twitter videos out of them, of you performing those songs. Again, if they're public domain, you can do a cover video. You don't have to worry about getting any synchronization licenses or anything like that. The article also talked about creating a holiday hangout. This is the time of year to connect with others. And so if you have a close group of fans, maybe this is where you host a hangout on Zoom or on Twitch or something, a private hangout where your fans can chat with you and you can chat with them and give you those fan connections over the holidays, especially if you're one of those creators that doesn't play a lot of holiday gigs, that wants to kind of wind down on the holidays. This might be a nice way to make use of some of that holiday free time to hang out with your fans. And while you're at it, why not use this time of year to associate with a charity? Get your fans doing some kind of charity drive like we did a couple years ago with Sweet Relief. Doing some kind of charity, getting your fans involved, a great way to promote awareness of a great cause on your socials, boost fan engagement. God, there's a lot of opportunity that comes at this time of year, Lauren, and that's why it's exciting to me.
And in theory, everybody's either in a better mood than they usually are, or in a worse mood and they need you more. So either way.
That's very, very true. All right, let's take a quick break. We're going to bring in our friend Jordy Freed. Excited for this interview, and I hope you all are too. Don't go anywhere. Keep checking out Break the Business. We'll be right back.
Ryan Kairalla here. I hope you're enjoying the show, and I hope that you're getting a lot out of it. I do what I do because I care about creators like you. A lot. I've dedicated my career to helping creative professionals, entrepreneurs, and organizations move forward. I do it by hosting this program, and I'm also proud to do it in my legal practice. If you're a creative professional looking for solutions-oriented legal services to help you further your goals, I'd love to help. My firm RKPA does contracts, commercial law, copyright, trademark, and more. Visit rkpalaw.com to learn more. That's rkpalaw.com. Ryan A. Kairalla, PA, Miami, Florida.
Streaming services for Break the Business provided by LEK Entertainment. LEK Entertainment is a full-service entertainment company offering everything from consultations to full-scale events and productions, including audio and video productions, voiceovers, staged theatrical productions, script and music development, and streaming services. For more information, visit lekentertainment.com. LEK Entertainment wants to help you bring your story to life.
Thanks for supporting Break the Business. If you have a question or topic that you want us to discuss, email us at breakthebusiness@gmail.com. You can follow the host, that's me, on Twitter at Ryan Kair, and you can follow the show at the BTB Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the show on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, and on all major podcast platforms. And now, let's get back to the show. Welcome back to Break the Business, everybody. Thank you for checking us out wherever you check us out. You've been checking us out the whole year on podcasting platforms, on live streaming platforms like Twitch and YouTube Live and Facebook Live and LinkedIn. Many of you, an increasing number of you, and we love hearing from you, are checking us out on Sirius XM 145 Slam Radio. Love our radio audience. Wherever you're checking us out, gosh, we have been so thrilled to be hanging out with you this year as we look back on this year and how much our little program has grown, as much as all the new people we're meeting, all the folks that are reaching out to me on whether it's social media or email saying, hey, thanks for that advice, that was a great guest you brought on, one of your co-hosts made such a great point, we're grateful for the work that Lauren's doing, whatever it is. That stuff makes us so happy. And looking back on the year, nothing but smiles, and the big smile that producer Lauren has on her face right now.
I love all of you.
Right. Feeling is mutual on this end of the show as well. Speaking of people that we love, that we are excited to hear from, let's go ahead and bring out our guest this week. He is the head of partner marketing and strategy, brand and business development, and video and sound products for Sony Corporation of America. In his role, he has overseen partnership projects with artists like Doja Cat, Pink, and Pharrell Williams. His work also has him exploring the role that emerging technologies such as VR and immersive audio can play in entertainment. Exciting stuff here. We are thrilled to welcome Jordy Freed on to Break the Business. Hello, Jordy.
Hi there. Thanks for having me. Ryan, Lauren, great to meet you.
Great to be meeting you. Great to be chatting with you. I want to talk to you all about emerging technology, brand partnerships. That's all super important, and I don't want to discount any of that. But first, I need you to tell us about the time that you were a radio host at a jazz station in Philadelphia and fell asleep during your overnight shift. As a former radio person who has fallen asleep on many an overnight shift, because that 4 to 7 a.m. shift will kill you, I need to hear. I sympathize. I understand. I got to hear this story.
No, it's a great story. Need to preface it by saying I was 18 years old. So cut me some slack. I was 18. I was in college. And I was a big jazz fan, was working at this radio station, like Philly's jazz radio station, not a student station, an actual, the station for Philadelphia for jazz. And I somehow managed to get an overnight shift, right? I was in school. And, it was like the 3 a.m. hour, 4 a.m. hour. I was doing a double shift. I think it was like a 12 to 6 shift. Oh. And I was like, 18 years old, you can truck through, right? But apparently I couldn't. So I said, okay, I'll choose a really long song. I'll just shut my eyes for a minute, like a 13-minute song. I think it was like a Branford Marsalis song or something like that. Next thing I know, I was on the floor and the switchboard just lit up like a Christmas tree. and I learned that people do actually listen at 4 a.m. in the morning.
At least that's a plus. You got to know you had listeners.
Yes, I had listeners, and I honestly don't know how much dead air there was.
I was going to say, how long
that was going to be my
out?
question, yeah.
I actually don't know. I don't think it was for a very long time. I don't want to relive that moment.
You didn't go back and replay it for yourself?
See, because the radio hosts today, they don't understand the struggle, right? Because these days,
if you're doing the graveyard shift at a radio station, you can just program like 10 songs back to back and take a little nap and no one's the wiser because there's always going to be music playing. But in Jordy's time and even in my time, like in radio, like we had to put records on turntables or CDs and CD players. And once that CD or that record was done playing, that was it. You had dead air. And so it was a scary time doing those graveyard shifts in radio.
Oh, yeah. It's called willpower. Willpower to stay awake. Yeah.
No, I feel like it gave you the fortitude to be able to handle like doing brand partnerships with some of the biggest names in music. I mean, if you can handle, 4 a.m. staying awake on a jazz radio station on a cold night in Philadelphia, you can handle whatever Doja Cat throws at you.
Yeah, so, it's like a workout, basically. You force yourself to stay awake.
Yeah, you paid your dues. Yeah.
You literally pay your dues, so.
All right, now that we've sufficiently made fun of you for your radio days, let's talk about the amazing work that you're doing with Sony. Can you tell us a little bit about your day-to-day? Because it seems like the coolest job in the world.
I'm really grateful. First of all, Sony's an incredible company, right? So many people know Sony. We all know Sony, and people know Sony from different, industries because of how diverse we are, whether it's Sony Music. This is a music-focused podcast, right? So a lot of your listeners, when they hear Sony, they probably think the label. Sony Electronics, TVs, headphones, Sony Pictures, PlayStation, right? It's this incredible, iconic depth of a brand, right? That has so many different resources. That's really focused on creators at the end of the day, and content, right? In my role, I get to really work at the intersection of tech in entertainment and music, right? So particularly on the sound side. So, how is what we're doing from a sound technology and hardware perspective, empowering incredible music listening experiences and also music creation for creators, right? And at the end of the day, we're about connecting creators and consumers, right? So to kind of be at the intersection of that for such an iconic brand that's really at the forefront of developing whatever's next in tech is pretty amazing to kind of have a seat on that train,
And a tech innovation I've really been kind of falling in love with the last couple months is this immersive audio. The first time I put on my earbuds and I heard a song in immersive audio where, for the uninitiated, it's just the idea of like, imagine if like all the people in the band were like playing all around you in 360 degrees, and whichever way you turn your head, you're going to hear like a different, like the instruments being played in a different way. So it sounds like the sounds in the room in like a 360 degree experience. My jaw dropped the first time I heard something in immersive audio. It blew my mind. You must have had a similar experience, and it must excite you to get to like sort of take that technology and partner with artists to help promote it.
Yeah, I first experienced 360 reality audio in 2017, believe it or not, years ago.
Oh wow!
Before it was even called 360, and I've watched the tech grow. I've watched the content grow. I've watched kind of seeing these creators get exposed to this technology for the first time, and the idea is incubating, right? The only way to really describe it for those who don't know is it's like there's black and white and then there's color,
Yeah.
because it's like, it's 2D and 3D in the almost literal sense. I'm not going to say literally because technically that's not the appropriate or accurate thing to say when describing this technology. But it really creates a realistic and realism experience when you feel like you're stepping into the music, right? And for the right mix, there is nothing like it. And this is just the beginning too. The tech is always improving. It's living and breathing. It's growing. The applications for the technology are continuing to expand. Even just a couple of years ago at CES, we did audio video for the first time in 360. There are plans, for live content as well. So just to see the growth of, what we're able to do to kind of push the boundaries for how creators can create and consumers can experience the tech is amazing. And really, at the end of the day, it does come back to the creator, because when you're working with these creators, right, they're creative geniuses in their own right, each of them. And when you put this tech in front of them, everyone has a different perspective, and ideas spark, and applications get suggested, right? So, again, it comes back to being a very creator first company in terms of just what we focus on.
I love this. Yeah, it's like that audio is like getting hugged by the music. It's just, it's like getting a gentle hug by your favorite song. It's so cool. I mean, the only technology that I'm even more excited about than like this immersive audio, I was talking to Lauren a little bit about this in the first segment, is the potential that VR has in music. I've gotten pretty obsessed with my MetaQuest. I'm playing that all the time, whether it's Golf Plus, which I think is like the coolest app I've ever played in the whole wide world, or just any of the exercise apps, Beat Saber. I mean, the ties that exist between music and VR are exciting. And I know you're on the cutting edge of that. Can you talk a little bit about the role that you see VR playing in music going forward? Because I think as cool as it is right now, we've only scratched the surface of VR's potential.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, VR, metaverse, buzzwords, growing space. It's a space that's continuing to evolve. I mean, I will say, Sony, because we own PlayStation, we're in a very unique position, from a VR application perspective, to kind of look at those applications. I mean, we did some activity with the Chainsmokers years ago in the VR space through the PSVR headset, right? So, I mean, we've always been looking at those applications in this space. A lot of it does come down to core technology too. Some of the core technologies, that you might find on a streaming service might be cousins to what you might find in a gaming engine, right? And again, I know this isn't a technical podcast, so I don't want to get too technical. But what's interesting is when you have these great companies like PlayStation and Sony Electronics and Sony Music, and each of these companies, and even Sony Pictures too, right? Can't discount Sony Pictures. And each of these companies, aside from their content initiatives, are always looking at tech. There's a lot of interesting conversation that happens among these companies in terms of what everyone's working on and how there's intersections. So, I mean, you can read the headlines. I mean, I believe, VR has been an important tentpole for the PlayStation family for a number of years, and Sony Music's had artists collaborate in the VR space. And I mean, from an audio technology perspective, it's something we can't ignore,
Yeah.
Do you think we're going to see a lot more VR concerts?
I mean, you certainly see it from Meta.
Yeah,
you certainly see it from
and
Meta.
I should revise my prior question, because I've mentioned your competitor a lot. So I'll say, when I'm using my PlayStation VR equipment, I'm just so excited about the potential of VR in music. There we go.
Well, when they combine, and I'm sure they already have it, I'm just not privy to it, but the 360 immersive audio with the virtual reality headsets, where like when you're in that room or that concert, you can walk over to this area and hear the saxophonist more clearly because you're now near him.
Yeah.
And that combination excites me quite a bit.
There's a lot of potential. There's a lot of potential for the tech application to that digital experience for sure. We haven't announced anything. We haven't rolled anything out yet. When we're ready, you guys will definitely be one of the early folks to find out. Another space we are interested in too, that is public, is actually something called sound AR. So, there's VR and AR. And for those of, you listening who don't know, AR is augmented reality. So it's the world you live in with digital elements overlaid on top of that, not living completely in a virtual world. And we do have certain features like for example, are Link Buds, new earbuds that came out earlier this year, that do have certain sound AR capabilities in terms of when you go out in the world, how, you experience certain sounds overlaid among your environment. And there's unique integrations we have with Microsoft for that. And that's really getting into sound, even beyond music. But when you bring it back to music, based on some of these core technologies, there's, again, tons of interesting application,
So my question here is, how do the indie artists and the people who aren't already connected to the people at Sony and things, how do they make use of this? Is there a way they can release their stuff in this immersive audio? Can they be putting together concerts in a way that offer AR or VR opportunities? How can they get that kind of help?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I do want to say that we are extremely focused and interested in engaging the DIY and indie community. And we have done some things over the past couple of years. There are things in development which I can't get into right now. But I will say, for example, the software to mix in 360 reality audio, it's not some trade secret that you can't get access to unless you're a signed major label artist. It's actually available. It's a 360 reality audio creative suite, and it's a Pro Tools plugin. It plugs into a variety of DAWs. And this is something that we are scaling with strategic partners. And we want this to be available and used by the masses. Because at the end of the day, if you look at the market share, I mean, we all know this. If you look at the market share of volume of recorded music, it's indie music at the end of the day. Yeah. So, and that's growing and growing and growing. And you see that being addressed at the highest levels of, the corporate music industry, as an area of real interest and opportunity, right? So from our perspective, when we talk about sound creation, mixing, etc., we absolutely need to and want to be working with independent creators and DIY creators. And again, we've done some activities with certain organizations that are tapped into communities. We've worked with an organization called Jam Card. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this organization. It's a great creator community based in Los Angeles. It's expanding internationally. And it's a network of thousands of indie musicians. We did some work with music.com, a startup. Yeah, music.com.
Wow.
It does exist. That Pharrell Williams was involved with, where, when COVID hit, one of our key focuses was, okay, who's hurting the most in the music industry? And that's independent creators, like the Every Creator, who lost their gig. They can't go to the bar down the street to, make some money for that week, or they can't teach private lessons, in person or whatever. So we created a program that, if some of these creators submitted, a short video talking about a song that inspired them to this website, and submitted music that could be eligible for mixing, we would give them a certain amount of money, like in the hundreds of dollars, and they would have a chance for their content to be mixed, right? And we did that, and it was a great program. So we've done some things in the indie space, but back to your core question, the software is available, but we're creating a broader infrastructure to support kind of that wider distribution. So
once they record it, how to
point.
get it out there, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when these new things come out, you're going to come back to the Break the Business podcast and let all of our listeners know, right? Okay.
Absolutely. And you're welcome to share that stuff with us when it's ready. Open door policy. That being said, if you want to share any of that proprietary stuff right now, we'd be happy to hear it. Look, all right, I know enough about the music industry to know that in December, y'all close up shop. I guarantee you bosses aren't listening right now.
You know what?
They'll never find out.
You know what? I'm hopping on a call with Japan right after this, so I'm actually still working.
They don't let you have time off.
Thankfully, I'll get a couple days off, but our our colleagues at Sony Music, like Universal Music, the record labels are off. I am on the Sony Corporation of America side, which has different implications for
There you go.
vacations.
Right.
I was about to say, because like
Yeah.
I'm trying to get like some folks from the label side on Sony on the phone for like my entertainment clients, and I can't get anybody to return a call or an email right now. But that, you're saying that's the label publishing side. You guys on the product side are buzzing away.
They're
We're-
making the
we're-
technology and they want everybody to use it. I love it.
That is true, and we have CES coming up next month, so this is always a fun and interesting time. So
Without
Yeah.
a doubt.
yeah.
So I want to kind of shift gears here and talk about something that you said in interviews before that I thought was really intriguing. So in researching for this interview, I've heard you say in the past that it is important to seize big opportunities that come your way. Always generally good advice that we try to encourage around here. But I've also heard you say that one of the most important lessons that you've learned in your own career is to how to say no to things. And so I'm wondering, how have you in your own work learned to balance those things? How have you learned how to distinguish an opportunity worth seizing with an opportunity worth saying no to?
That's a really, really great question. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that question, and I appreciate it. It's a great question, and I think I know the answer to this question instinctively. The first thing is actually time. So time is a commodity. Time has value, right? And if you are making decisions, sometimes you do have to make decisions very quickly, right? But for the pivotal decisions, right, you need time to really think through, be analytical, weigh all the pros and cons, talk to your board, right? There are people that I know and I trust that have different perspectives. And earlier on in my career, I might have leaned too much on that board to help guide my decisions. And as I've matured and gotten more experience, I've realized that board is just, there to offer perspective for you to consider, but you have to make these decisions yourself. And I will say, believe it or not, what it has come down to for me is my gut feeling. Believe it or not, I instinctively, when I reflect back on things that may have worked or may not have worked, usually that my gut feeling was aligned with whether or not they were going to work or not. But it's also your risk tolerance too, in terms of, okay, how, what kind of risk are you willing to take? And I actually, one of the more recent kind of philosophies that I've taken has actually been an Amazon Music leadership, or not Amazon Music. I'm saying Amazon Music because I do a lot of work with Amazon Music, but an Amazon corporate philosophy in terms of how their leaders make decisions. And there's like one-way decisions or two-way decisions. And the one-way decisions, you make that decision, you can't reverse it.
Mm-hmm.
The two-way decisions, okay, if you take that action, can you reverse it? What's the impact? And that's a really interesting and unique way to look at decision making in terms of, yes or no. Because, if you take that philosophy, okay, you make a decision. So what's the domino effect? What's the impact? How can you walk it back? What's your exit strategy? If you map all of this out, it becomes more of calculated risk more than anything else, right? And you get closer to making a really analytical decision that's rooted in logic versus, but also backed by gut feeling, versus just going one way or another. And so I guess what I'm getting at is it's a hybrid of gut feeling and a lot of just inner reflection and analytical thinking.
And telling yourself it's okay to say no sometimes, which
Yeah. Yeah, you have to. Yeah, you have to, and it's about prioritization at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You just have to prioritize what works for you and what doesn't. And you know, I guess in my day to day, it comes down to triage, right?
Mhm.
A lot of it is triage, you know, because if you try and make everyone happy at the same time, no one will be happy, and you will not be happy. So you have to kind of look at your decision day by day and just say, okay, you know, what needs the most attention right now at this moment? You know,
Yeah.
can I say no to this right now?
It is an interesting shift that I think happens in most creators' lives at some point, where you go from just trying to find anything that you can say yes to eventually hitting the point where there's enough things coming in that you have to start saying no to some of them. And that's a whole other set of challenges in and of itself, and something that I think musicians and creators in general can struggle with because they're in the service business, right? They are people pleasers by nature.
Yep.
And so it's easy for them to get overwhelmed, to burn themselves out, to take on too much on their plate. And so, yeah, learning how to say no is a important strategy.
Yeah. I have something to add on that, knowing that your audience is very creator focused. You know, and this is where I'm going to kind of apply my kind of brand hat on the table, right? Brand strategy, brand marketing, you know, advice here. You know, to your point, creators may have challenges saying no because they're looking for any opportunity they can get. And, you know, any opportunity is an opportunity that you think is going to move you in the right direction. Well, the challenge with that is not every opportunity fits the direction you want to go or where you actually want to go. So if you have an end goal of doing X, Y, and Z and standing for something as a creator or an artist, right? You might have that long-term vision. However, if you have X, Y, and Z opportunities that come up and you say yes to those, how do those fit within that path for your end game? Does it take you away? Does it change your branding? Does it change your perception? Does it change, you know, your value in market? Does it sacrifice what you're doing from an artistic standpoint? All of that. So if, you know, to kind of the core point of, you know, your audience and saying no, like I say for creators, like think about that end game, right? Mm-hmm. And if you really want to focus on that end game, how do you, you know, analyze each decision within the context of a track versus just any opportunity?
Right.
Our guest has been Jordy Freed. He is the head of partner marketing and strategy, brand and business development, and video and sound products for Sony Corporation of America. This has been a blast. I have really enjoyed exploring this technological space with you, having you share some amazing advice for our creators to close out the year. And we would love it if we could trouble you for just one final piece of advice before you go. Our final question here. Do you have any last tips for the indie creators out there to help them move their careers forward?
That's a great question. Work. Hustle. That's what it is at the end of the day. The more work you put in, the luckier you will be. You know, you can work very hard to get very lucky. And then I'll add to that is really stay true to who you are as your brand and identity, and really get to the core of what makes you unique as a creator. And if you put that work with your own identity, right, for what speaks to you, then you probably have a much better shot at getting what you want.
Fabulous advice. Jordy, whenever you have some great big product development that you want to share, please come to us as soon as that information gets released, maybe even a week before it gets released, if you want to give us a little bit of an early peek at it. No one's going to begrudge you. Either way, would be thrilled to chat with you again. Thank you so much for your time this week.
Yeah, Ryan, Lauren, thank you so much. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Jordy Freed, everybody. Love talking to the people on the product side. They're doing some really cool stuff. I'm telling you, Lauren, the first time I heard that immersive audio, like it's sort of like when you watch like television in high definition and then you go back to watching standard definition and it looks like it's from 100 years ago. Like the first time I listened to something in immersive audio and then went back to the regular kind of audio, I was like, oh my God. It was huge difference. It was like listening to music out of a tin can.
Well, he had said it was like, 2D versus 3D, but I almost feel like, surround sound would be the 3D. This is like putting on that virtual reality headset and looking around and being like, oh, look, it goes everywhere.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I'm excited.
Very excited. Well, as we said before, this is our final Break the Business of the year. I know we're all shedding tears around here, but we're really excited to come back in 2023. We have a lot of fantastic guests to start things off in January. We're going to be really hitting the ground running next year. It's going to be fantastic. Our thanks to Anastasia Bowden for joining us in the first segment. Our thanks to Jordy Freed for joining us as our guest this week. My thanks to you, producer Lauren, not just for this week, but for everything you do for this program. I love you. All the fans love you. You keep this show running, and I'm so grateful for that.
And I appreciate you too.
And finally, the biggest of thank yous to all of you, viewers and listeners, for checking out Break the Business, for helping us grow this community, for creating just a fun place for all of us to hang out each week and talk about the thing that I'm passionate about, that you're passionate about, empowering indie creators. Have a happy and safe and productive and fun holiday season. We're going to see you in 2023. Much love. Thanks for checking out Break the Business.
See you next year.
Break